Caribbean, renowned for her acclaimed book, Manager's First Aid Kit, she provides practical solutions to managerial challenges, earning accolades from both new and seasoned professionals. With an extensive background in coaching, management, and policy in both public and private sectors, she is celebrated as a pioneer in HR, recognized as a 2023 Regional HR Champion. Ambassador Underwood's leadership journey extends beyond borders, including her roles as Antigua and Barbuda's non-resident ambassador, the Chief Implementation Officer in the Office of Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Winston Baldwin Spencer. Her impact transcends literature and accolades. She is a beacon for women leaders, with her story prominently featured in championing women leaders. Ambassador Joan Underwood's enduring dedication to excellence continues to inspire and shape the future of leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Joan Underwood.
Afternoon, my Jamaican brethren and sisters. My home folks from Barbados.
Yes.
I'm representing the entire region. A little bit of trivia about me. Born in Antigua and Barbuda, first generation Antiguan and Barbuda. Father, Montserratian. Mother, Dominican. Husband, Bajan, but we got married in St. Lucia. We decided to meet in the middle. So I see myself as a Caribbean woman by birth, by nature, and most importantly, by heart. And when I was in the Foreign Service as a young diplomat coming up, I always kept my eye on the Jamaican delegation because you guys stood out like a beacon. So whether we were in Venezuela negotiating the Petro-Caribbean Initiative, or we were in Washington at an energy meeting, because I was the ambassador to Venezuela, I always paid attention to what the Jamaicans were doing and saying. Because not only are you the most populous of the English-speaking Eastern Caribbean, but are you tolerant? Okay? And so I'm very honored that you have asked me to be here to share some thoughts with you. And it's always a pleasure and a privilege to partner with mine. So our focus, and it's me standing between you and Russia, right? So yeah, one business run over, sit down in traffic, right? So we're going to talk. So the focus is on people engagement. And we see that as being the heart of service excellence. So I'm going to tell you a story, because you're not Caribbean people, we love a story. And here's how I've crafted the story. We're going to start with what. So, we want to know is what happened with me. So we're going to, in the what section of the story, define exactly what we mean by engagement. How do you know it when you see it? And having established the what, we then say, so what? Why is that relevant to you as public service leaders? And in that, we will look at the link between engagement and key performance outcomes. And we'll also look at how you impact engagement. And the final segment, so we do what, so what, now what? Because this is about action. This is about movement, as James said. And in the now what segment of the story, we'll talk about how you can go about creating and using a formula to drive engagement and ultimately service excellence. Sound like something you can talk about 1 hour? All right. So the what? What is the definition of engagement? What do we mean when we say that people are engaged? And so I offer for your consideration not one, not two, but 3 definitions. The first one is from Gallup. And Gallup for decades has been researching employee engagement. And I'll be sharing the results from the latest report, which came out last month. So Gallup defines employee engagement as those who are involved in, enthusiastic and committed. So note the key words: involvement, enthusiasm, commitment. Sounds like something you'd want to have on your team, yes? The Harvard Business Review, they define it as the energy, the effort, and the initiative that employees can bring to their job. Again, all good stuff, all things you would want to see on your team. And CIPD, they endorse the definition, which says that engagement is a state of mind in which the employee shows vigor, dedication, and absorption. So I think by a show of hands, anybody don't want engagement on their team based on these definitions? All right, so just me. So clearly, this is what we would like to have with our people. So how do you know it when you see it? And this is a quote from the latest Gallup report, the 2024 State of the Global Workplace. And this particular quote comes from an employee from Australia. And this employee is identified as being engaged. And here's what Callista had to say. I really enjoy my job. I think I work with really, really fantastic people. And the work we do is really, really meaningful. How many really count in that sentence? All right? So you want employees like Callista on your team, not so. That's an engaged employee. That's enthusiasm. That's commitment. That's vigor. All right? But there are 2 other categories in which your employees can fall. You'd love to have everybody here, but the reality is not the case. So here's another one, and this one now, this is an employee who's designated as not engaged. And this one has to say, I'm getting a salary from this work, so I have to do it. But there's a bit of boredom in doing the same work every day. Yeah, anybody say anything comparable to this? That would be someone who is not engaged. Okay? So far we have engaged and we have not engaged. Now this isn't great. What I tell you is not as bad as this one. Actively disengaged. So how do you know these? You'll hear them say something like, I could push it, but I'm so frustrated with the way things are going around here that, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do nothing. Remember when we were doing that activity with James just now? And there were some of you who got to the point where, come bother with us. Those are your disengaged people. Actively disengaged. And I'm going to share some really interesting statistics about those people later on. So we've gotten the definitions. We've looked at what it sounds like in each category. So now let's look at the data from the most recent Gallup research. And by the way, when I talk about Jamaica leading, Jamaica was the only English-speaking Caribbean country that participated in the Gallup survey. So when they say Latin America and Caribbean, who do I represent? Okay? So here's the thing. Engagement is not something that occurs in a vacuum, that has no precursor and has no impact. So let's really drill down into some of the statistics in terms of the link between engagement or lack thereof and certain negative factors like stress and anger. Now, there's a lot going on this diagram, so let's break it down. So we just went through three categories: engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged. But in this graphic, you'll see that Gallup has added another component, which is unemployed. And so they asked participants, within the past day, to what extent did you experience these things, stress, anger, etc.? So the percentages we see are those persons who said that within the past 24 hours, they experienced these emotions. So let's start with stress. 34%, or 1 in 3, of engaged employees said within the past 24 hours they felt stress. That's high. That's a lot of stress. And those are your engaged people. The people who said that were categorized as not engaged is even more. It went up to 40%. But check out the actively disengaged people now. 54%, more than half of them said, oh, yes, they were stressed. Look at the final column. They're even more stressed than the people that don't have no work. And they come in your office nearly every day, but it is policy. Right? So think about that. They're showing up on the job, and more than half of them will tell you they're stressed. But it gets worse. Let's look at anger. 17% of engaged people said, yeah, within the 24 hours I was angry. Goes up a little bit for those who are not engaged, 19%. But check out the actively disengaged people again, 32%, nearly double the level of anger with the people who are engaged. And again, they're more vexed than the people that don't have no work. Worried, 30%, and this is global stats, okay? 30% of engaged people said, I've been worried within the past day. Goes up a little bit for the not engaged, 36. Again, look at those actively disengaged people. What are half of them? No, they tie with the unemployed people. So you kind of even it out a little bit. Sad, lonely, similar patterns. And these people are on the job. So if your people are feeling like this, how are they going to deliver excellent service? If you are feeling like this, how are you going to deliver excellent service? So, because Jamaica has been participating in the Gallup poll for some time now, Gallup does what's called a 3-year rolling average. And they tell you what percentage of the people were engaged, not engaged, actively disengaged. Now, you see the line at the top, you see what is labeled? Not engaged. And you remember who those people were, right? People that go down your work. And it's almost 55% of, I remember this is Jamaica statistics, so it's not nowhere else. This is here. Right? And the trend line is kind of flat, so it's not that it has changed drastically. It's fairly consistent. More than half of the people are saying, I'm not engaged. Look at where the engaged is, just under 30%. Less than 1 in 3 are showing up as engaged. And luckily, the actively disengaged is the lowest. But look at where it is. It's 18%. Almost 1 in 5 people. These are people that say, but I'm not doing enough. These are the people who are angry more than people that don't have to work. Stressed more than people that don't have to work, and they're coming to your work. All right, James did tell me that the two works occasionally. I'm going to share a really short video. We'll talk at the back end.
When employees are engaged, when they have those engagement elements going right in their lives, they have higher autonomy, they have higher ownership of the organization, They put in more discretionary effort. We found even in past recessions, engagement was an even stronger predictor of performance. So there's an element of resiliency. Employees who are engaged are more resilient. They fight through tough times. They keep your organization going at a high level, even during those tough times. And they thrive during the good times, even at a faster pace than your competition. So I would think of employee engagement as a competitive advantage, as something that says something about your employment brand and your culture. When you have an engaging culture, we all know what happens inside organizations leaves organizations very quickly now through social media and other forms. People look to their friends for advice on where to work. They look to all kinds of outlets technologically. And so your employment brand, having an authentic employment brand, starts with having an engaging work environment where people have their performance going right. They feel like they're performing and developing and a part of an important, significant culture that's making a difference.
So think about it. Those actively disengaged people who work with you. What are they saying to people outside of the organization? What are they saying on the talk shows? Right? What are they saying to your customers, your clients who come in to get service? Now remember, they're stressed, they're angry, they're lonely, they're worried, they're sad. So, in this model, I'll draw your attention first to the red trend line. All right, we're mapping performance on the y-axis against time on the x-axis. So over time, if we're following this red trend line, when someone comes into your organization, so a new recruit, you don't expect their performance to be top notch because it takes some time. They have to go through orientation, onboarding, etc. But at some point in time, you expect them to start performing above the minimum threshold, correct? Okay, so minimum required. That's what they have to do to keep the work. Let's look at the upper trend line. That's labeled the want to do curve. Remember when we spoke about enthusiasm, vigor, etc. So the difference between these two trend lines is what we call discretionary effort. The difference between what you have to do to get the work and what you want to do because you're enthusiastic about the work. You follow me? So our goal as leaders is to get our people up to the want to do curve so that we get the benefit of that additional performance and ultimately get to service excellence. So let's come back to some data from the most recent report. So I pulled out the Jamaica stats compared to the rest of the world. So compared to your global counterparts, get more sad. 26% of the Jamaicans said that they were sad in the last 24 hours, compared to 22% globally. Oh dear. That's a vision, the vision to sector here. Right? When you feel sorry for them. All right? In terms of stress, you're actually less stressed, but plenty stress still, because it's 35%, more than 1 in 3. And I was talking to somebody who shall remain nameless, who suggested that they wanted to really substance had anything to do with the less stress. You don't know. Y'all have been asked about that. Right? And then the last one I wanted to look at now is angry. So you're less stressed, but you're more angry. All right? So again, these people have the job. These people may be new people. And we want service excellence. Okay? So on any given day, how likely are we to get service excellence from people who feel in these things? Okay? This is the reality that we have to navigate. All right, so that's the what. We defined it. So we know what the situation is. We know what the stats are, globally and for you. So what? What does that mean? What are the implications? So let's look at how we link this now so that it matters. And I invite you to scan the QR code. You can either use the QR code on the screen or you can use the card on your desk to get to a single question code. And this is the question. What are some of the performance outcomes that you think might be affected by the level of employee engagement? Some of you might not be able to get it from where you are, because this is a smaller version of it. But you can also use the URL to get there. You can go to menti.com, menti.com, and enter the code 57431182. And we see the responses already coming in. All right, so promotion and recognition. So the question is, what performance outcomes or indicators do you think are linked to engagement? So we see lower absenteeism, poor quality, productivity, attendance, and enthusiasm. All right, and mind you will get all the answers. I will be able to share that with you. All right, but I'm going to move on and show you what the published data says about this. So these are the top 9 performance outcomes that have been linked to engagement in a statistically significant way. Customer ratings. So this ties into service excellence. Profitability. And you may say, well, we're not in the private sector, so we don't business with profitability. But the people from finance probably have something to say about that. Right? Productivity, employee turnover, safety. So imagine, because remember these disengaged people, how they're angry, they're worried, etc., etc. They could be having accidents on your job because of the distraction of those other factors. People thief less if they're engaged. Okay? They come to work. All right, even in healthcare, you have less patient safety incidents when your employees are engaged, and you have fewer quality defects. So, in terms of the question that came earlier about how do you convince your bosses that this stuff is important, show them this type of information. And it's not just qualitative information, we can quantify it. So you start having those evidence-based conversations. Now, here's the data to help you with those conversations. 78% reduction in absenteeism when we compare the top 25% of engaged workplaces to the bottom 25%. You hear that? 78% reduction in absenteeism between the most engaged and the least engaged organizations. Turnover, 51% less turnover between the top engaged companies and the bottom. I say companies, but it's both public and private sector. Customer engagement is up 10% in the top 25. Productivity is up 13%. And all of this data is from the latest research from Gallup. Look at this, employee well-being. And we heard from Matt today about compassion. The employees in the top 25% of entities with employee engagement had 68% better employee well-being. That's hugely significant. And 22% of organizational citizenship. This is how you make the business case for focusing on engagement. So we've seen some stats a worrisome, but there's a silver lining, okay? Because you can, in fact, have positive impact. You can effect change. So how do you, as leaders, as managers within the MDAs, how do you leverage what we just heard in terms of the benefits of having engagement and the link between engagement and those outcomes that we want? So here's the thing, it really sits with you, the capacity to make a difference. Why? 70% of the variance in employee engagement is directly attributable to the manager. You know, that's 70%. So you matter. You make a difference. It don't happen just by batch, as the treaties would say. Okay? Here's what you need to do to reap the benefit of that variance. So, when leaders and managers are trusted, heard about this for the day already, and when they inspire employees, the employees then find meaning in their work, they're more engaged. They feel like part of the culture. We're going to talk more about culture a little bit later, and they perform better. Just by having managers who they trust and who inspire them. Doesn't stop there. Employees who strongly agree that they trust the leadership of their organizations are 4 times more likely to be engaged. 4 times. And who was it that spoke about the difference in approach in terms of boss versus leader? Back again, okay. So the difference between how you show up, and here we refer to it as manager's post versus the boss. So managers who adopt a coach approach, they communicate clearly, they support and advocate for their employees, and they cultivate the type of environment that fosters innovation, creativity, that drives productivity. So there's a side-by-side comparison of what it looks like when you're the boss versus what it looks like when you show up as a coach or a leader. And you heard some of this with Matt already, so I'm not going to go through in a lot of detail, but you will get the slide deck so that you can do the side-by-side comparison. And I encourage you to ask yourself, in which column do I typically show up? Aristotle said self-awareness is the beginning of wisdom. It doesn't say guarantees wisdom, but it's the beginning. Because with self-awareness, you can then proceed to self-regulation. If it's one image that I hope you will recall as you move forward in the upcoming days, weeks, months, it's this one. Here's one. Look at the blue trend line. That's the level of employee engagement globally, dating all the way back to 2009 up to 2023. If you notice, it never once went above the 25% mark. Last year, it was at 23%. 23%, less than 1 in 4 people globally report as being engaged. Look at the green line. Trending up slightly, and we lost some ground between 2022 and 2023. But it's at 70% engaged. You know who's on that top trend line? Those are the top entities in terms of employee engagement. Look at the difference between 23% and 70%. That's the gain that you can realize if you do the work to have your employees be engaged. And we don't have to guess about what those entities on the green line have been doing, because it's there in the published research. And one of the things is what we just looked at with the difference in the approach to management. leadership. So when you show up as a coach leader, as a coach manager, you can get to that 70% trend line as opposed to being down on the 23% trend line. Want to find out how? No, that goes so confusing. Because if so, the 3 people that said yes, then you can talk that. All right? And that brings us to the now what? How do we do it? So, how do we create and maintain a culture of service excellence within public service? But first of all, what do we mean when we say culture? And we heard a previous presenter who defined culture for us today. The women, which women? All right, so I offer you 3 definitions for your consideration. First one, a set of beliefs and values which are shared by the members of the organization and that influences how they behave. So that's the CIP definition. My favorite one is the one in the middle. Keep it very simple. Culture is how we do things wrong. Right? Everybody can understand. Okay. Another definition offered by CIPD, they talk about the values, the beliefs, the principles, and the management practices. So this is all more textbooky. So you know that's your speed. You have that there, but essentially it's how we do things. Not what we talk about, but how we live it out. Okay? So what then is a high performance culture? So how you do things in organizations that have high performance. And that is characterized by employees that are engaged, who feel valued, and who are continually learning. It's not static. We heard from Ingrid about VUCA. All right? And we're going to come to the purpose in a bit. So, how do we get such a culture? How do we get and sustain this high performance when we're going to act as if we're in the construction industry? And so we're going to start by laying down the foundation. And what is in that foundation? Because you know, no foundation can create equivalent. And we know that because we just get hurricane and we just get earthquake. And we see some things, some buildings stand up, and others is remember, you have to remember that something was okay. So what do we need in the foundation? A strong mission, a strong why, a compelling and uniform answer to the why. We need a cohesive vision. People need to understand, okay, where is it that we're going? What's the desired future state? We need clear and achievable goals, and we need core values. And not just words that you see up on the wall along with the Prime Minister and the Minister picture. People need to understand what these core values mean in terms of behavior. So when you say you're innovating, what I mean? How you know it when you see it? Right? What else? We just have the core values. Accountable. What I mean? Remember, culture is how we do things here. All right, so that's our foundation. Strong vision, cohesive vision, clear achievable goals, and our core values. So after we've laid down a solid foundation, we're ready to start building up the superstructure now. And I put it to you that there are 3 elements that we're going to have in our superstructure. But you don't build from the top down. So we're going to start from the bottom up. So the first floor is psychological safety. We heard about that a little earlier. We're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into it. Employee engagement. We've been talking about that for the last 2 minutes now. And then the roof on our solid structure of high performance is employee satisfaction. Because if they're not satisfied, they're not engaged, they're not going to give us the vigor and the discretionary effort and the enthusiasm that we mean for service excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I put it to you that these things need to be in alignment. Because if there's dissonance, if there's a disconnect between what you're saying and what you're doing, between your structures and your system, between your leadership and what you're asking of your people, the whole thing is going to come from you. So how do we get to this level? So it starts with the purpose, and we heard from you the importance of purpose. And with your purpose, and let's say the purpose of this discussion, that our purpose we're pursuing service excellence. That's where it starts, and everyone needs to understand what does that mean for us as an MDA? What does that mean for me as a worker within this MDA? What's my role in delivering on this purpose? And it's after we have established that that we can then cascade the little bus. You want to go first? Let's go back to that. Okay? Because from that purpose, that shared purpose, that clarity, you're then going to formulate your strategy, and you then proceed to execution, and based on that, that you're going to monitor and evaluate and make adjustments as required. But far too often we want to start in the middle and just go along. This is strategy, this is what you need to do. There's no context. People aren't able to relate it to something bigger than them, something inspirational. So there's our foundation. All right, we're going to go into the different floors now. So we're going to start with psychological safety. And here I'm going to draw on the work of Timothy Clark to talk about the 4 stages of psychological safety. The first stage is inclusion safety. People need to feel that they're truly part of something bigger than them. All right, they need to feel that they belong, that they're included. And I don't mean just by giving them the 2 uniforms and the bag so they can swipe to come in the building. Genuinely feel included. I am part of this team. Not that there's an A team and a B team and an in and an out team, but we are one. What's the matter again? Out of many. Okay, so that's the first level of psychological safety. They need to feel included. The second level is that they need to feel safe to learn on the job. So yes, you expect them when they get to work that they present a CV and you trust that what they say in the CV is true, so they know how to do what they say they know how to do. But the thing is, they don't know your ways necessarily, so they have to come and learn. Your standard operating procedures, they need to learn that. And there's nothing wrong with that. They need to feel safe that I can say I don't understand something. I can ask a question without there being judgment, and that might be castigated. The third level is contributor safety. So having been added to the team, you feel included. You've learned on the job in terms of this is how we do it here. Now I can contribute, and my contribution is valued and appreciated. Not just once a year when you have to fill out the PMAS thing. Right? And I'm pretending like you don't do it every year. Right? It's when you have to send something up for promotion or transfer, so that's when you do it, right? All right, hush. But they need to feel appreciated. They need to feel that their contribution is valued. So they need feedback. And that feedback could be positive reinforcement, or it could be developmental. Doesn't matter. It's important that you acknowledge the contribution and give them the feedback they need so that they can continue to learn and grow in the role. And the fourth stage is challenger safety. And I like to say that you have to earn your way up to this level of safety. You know, some people just come in the door, and the first day on the job, they want to tell you everything you know wrong. That's how it works. So you need to first understand how we do things here. You make a contribution, so by doing, you may figure out, hey, what if we did this instead of that? You need to feel safe enough to ask that question. All right? So the 4 levels: inclusion safety, learner safety, contributor safety, and challenger safety. So when they have those levels of safety, they think it's okay, it's safe to both give and receive feedback, to raise issues or concerns. So they see that something is not working or that there's potential for it to work even better. And they say, yeah, man, I can tell a supervisor, I can tell the manager this, because they will realize that I'm doing it as part of my contribution to the realization of the purpose, my contribution to the realization of service excellence. So it will be received in that way. When you're on psychological safety, people know it's okay to disagree. They know it's okay that I can admit if I made a mistake. In some organizations, it is known and understood that you bury the mistakes along with the people who made them, never to be spoken of again. And then you still say that innovation is one of your core values. Making mistakes is an essential part of innovation, because innovation is doing things you haven't done before. So you're never doing perfect the first time. You learn by doing and you improve on it. So a couple of years ago, I was doing a consultancy here in Jamaica with one of the agencies. And I wasn't brought in for this, but it became apparent in my discussion and interaction with the staff that there was a lack of psychological. They perceived a lack of psychological safety. So I kind of called the time out, asked to speak with the leadership, and drew to their attention. And I had a very interesting conversation, pushback from the leadership, where it became apparent to me that there was a misperception in terms of what psychological safety really is. And it turns out, from the conversation, it became apparent to me that the leader thought that I was saying he needed these people to feel more comfortable, right? And he thought that that meant he would have to give up on performance. So he thought that, if you look at this 2x4 here, that I was asking him to lower his performance standards to make people feel more comfortable. But that's not what psychological safety is. When you have psychological safety, it's not a polarity, right? And we spoke about polarities. So it's not either performance or psychological safety, it's and. So you are going to maintain the high performance standards, and you're going to make it safe. People are going to feel included, they know they can learn, they know they can contribute, and they know they can shine. Right? So the learning zone is what we're aiming for to get the engagement and ultimately the service excellence. And so again, the data is there, so you can have these conversations where you can show that when you do take the time as leaders, as managers, to create and maintain a psychologically safe environment, you get learning, you get innovation, you get adaptability, you get creativity, you get improvements in morale, and you get better problem solving because people are so afraid to speak up. So in addition, remember we said managers account for 70% of the variance with employee engagement. Here are some other factors. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to delve into them. You'll have the slide there. I just want to identify a couple of things for you. all right? Having that positive relationship with your people. And I remember being told by an older and wiser person, just as I was starting my leadership journey, people don't know how much, or people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So you can be the brightest of the brightest. If the people think that you don't care about them, they will not perform. You may get compliance. What you don't get is commitment. And I can tell you, I have managed in an environment where I got compliance, and I've managed in environments where I got commitment, and I would take commitment over compliance any day of the week. And you cannot compel commitment. You may be able to compel compliance, but people have to voluntarily give you that commitment. And if they don't trust you, you're not going to get it. Okay? So the quality of the relationships you have with your people are important. Remember this diagram. Remember what we're aiming for is the discretionary gap. Right? That's engagement. So here's my theory of change when it comes to engagement and service excellence. Employee engagement predicts a number of key performance outcomes. And we listed some of them, and you, when you answered the poll, you identified some of them. All right? So we know that there's a statistically significant correlation. We also know that managers are largely responsible for engagement. So engagement, statistical correlation between that and performance. Managers are primarily responsible for engagement levels. So therefore, by understanding what drives engagement and then equipping yourselves as leaders, as managers to drive that commitment, you can then secure the improvements in performance. You can then secure the service excellence. Sound logical? Well, large persuaded, because she's like family. But what about over here?
Yes,
You believe this
absolutely,
logical progression here?
for sure.
All right. So, immediate supervisors, so not the people that you were asking about this morning in terms of how we get them. Who know? You, all we, we're the ones who can drive it. Okay? Look at this. How they react to us directly, that accounts for 84% of how they feel about the organization. Because they interact more with you than with the people further up the chain of command. So that relationship is, because it's more remote, it doesn't have as huge, I'm not saying it's not relevant, but it doesn't have as big an impact as the direct relationship. Look at another statistic here. And again, you're going to get the slide deck so that you can use this. So, supervisors and line managers who make employees feel inspired, enthusiastic, happy, and excited, they drive engagement. Contrast that now with those who make employees feel insulted, upset, irritated, and remember the things we spoke about, worried, stressed, sad. We have the opposite effect. So we had our foundation, we had the ground floor, which was psychological safety. We had the second floor, which is employee engagement. And so we put it on our roof now, we're almost done. So employee satisfaction is a person's feelings of contentment in their workplace. And we get satisfaction when an employee feels fulfilled and they feel comfortable in their position. So when I put it on board, when that was on that, we have to sit down and put it on. Okay? Prevention better than cure. So don't wait till you're at hurricane one into one, walk by your room and see if everything is secure. This wasn't done for a long time. All right? So check your roof frequently to ensure that it's in good condition. All right? In the context of what we're talking about, how do you do that? You have pulse surveys, you have stay interviews, and you can hold managers accountable for their levels of employee engagement. So you can measure engagement by the department, and you can track the trend so that you see if, in fact, you're having the desired impact in driving engagement. Right? But again, don't just wait until you have some big change initiative. So let me touch base with them and see how they're feeling now. No. You have to genuinely and authentically show your people on an ongoing basis that you care for them and that is safe for them. So, recap, start with your purpose. Layer on top of that psychological safety and engagement, and you will get to employee satisfaction, ultimately to service excellence. No, accountability. Because all of this comes to nothing if you do not hold yourselves accountable to deliver on it. So I love this quotation. Accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. And there's a difference between accountability and blame, right? Because we're famous for throwing people under the bus. I remember when I was involved with CLP, the Caribbean Leadership Project, one of the permanent secretaries said, Joan, why do they don't have a session called Leading from Under the Bus? And I was like, what do you mean? They said, but because the politicians always throw away under the bus, you might as well stay under there and lead from here. Okay? So there's a difference between blame and accountability. And again, this is in the slide there. In a culture of blame, you believe that people are the problem. In accountability, you think that people are problem solvers. In a culture of blame, you think that problems are headaches. With accountability, you see problems as the opportunity to learn something. In a culture of blame, you focus on who is wrong. In a culture of accountability, you focus on what is wrong. In a culture of blame, you focus on naming and shaming and putting people under the bus. In a culture of accountability, you focus on learning from mistakes. So, folks, here's what we covered. Talked about what? Find engagement. We looked at some stats, both for Jamaica and the global stats. Then we said, so what? So we looked at the link between engagement and key performance outcomes, and then we talked about no one. So you have a formula for what you can do from where you are to drive engagement and ultimately services. And that is the content, is the story. Yes.
All right, so quick question. What if any that tested, right? But employees are not given into it for various reasons? Maybe the history of disengaged managers, or just HR, or just employees that they have to do it for the firm. Can you get them to what they want to do?
Yes, is the short answer, and it's by building relationship one relationship at a time. Because remember, that relationship with you accounts for 70%. So you have to acknowledge the history, acknowledge the hurt, as Dr. Brown has done some amazing work on professional hurt. That is instructive here. But it begins first by acknowledging the history, and then by living it out, showing them that you are different, that it is different, before you make the ask. But you have to acknowledge that. Okay. And I have given a QR code where you can scan to download a complimentary copy of my book, Manager's First Aid Kit, and you get a more expansive answer to that question in that book. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon to you. I have a question about the performance results. Just wondering if the data, have data on looking up demographics, age and gender.
Yes, it does.
So I'd be interested to know, for instance,
So you can Google it.
oh, okay.
Yeah, the report is available. Before they used to charge people in this freedom. So just go on Google, Gallup 2024 State of the Global Work.
Okay, but since right here, I'm really curious if, what's the difference between Gen Z and Gen X?
Okay, I'll confess I didn't pay as much attention to the age. I was looking at man and woman. To say
But what the gender?
the difference was not that great. Yeah, it was that great. Because I was looking to see, bring it up, and then I said, it's not great. But if you like, you can come over and I can show you exactly where you can download the report and read it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Tricky question. So what's the health family unengaged in an organization? You may not be able to name everyone, right? So what's a fair amount for you to say, okay, I'm not too worried?
I would say that that's the wrong question to ask.
I mean, the aim is 100, but just accept
Okay, so
the
let's
reality.
focus on that. So let's go back to that and then the positive. So yes, you're not gonna get everybody, right? But what I would say is I don't think it's advisable to approach it and say, man, let me aim for this, and then the rest of it is.
It's not necessarily not getting, but there are some things where in some organizations it's like an all around thing. So if you're not able to get 100%, the impression is that you're not getting enough. Just to kind of get an idea of even the most engaged organizations, what is their average of people in this age, not the significantly or unengaged.
So you don't want anyone who's actively disengaged. It doesn't have to be more back, that's the deal, that's unemployed and so on. But I would go back to something that James said earlier. It's like service excellence. It's a just keep doing your best and better because it will benefit the organization. Yeah. All right, so if there are no additional questions, here's my closing salvo for you. Thinking about this is important, about everything that you've heard here today. Planning is important, but it's action that changes things. Action changes things.
Yes.
So what are you going to do to make a difference? And I encourage you to not to say you want to try, right? Because you know what Yoda said, right? Yoda said there's no try. So either do or do not. There is no try. Because if you do something and it doesn't give you the result that you're looking for, you've learned something in the process. So you take that learning on board and you do something else. And you keep repeating that. You keep repeating that. You keep repeating that. Action changes things. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, compliment downloads the book. All right. Oh, take that. All right.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. You can also access her book from the QR code, the carton. President King. Ambassador Underwood, I'd like to express our heartfelt thanks for such an insightful presentation. You really illuminated the critical, crucial role of employee engagement in achieving service excellence. The data you've provided, the insight, I think everyone would agree, they've really provided a solid foundation for us. And more importantly, we'll all leave with understanding the essential role of managers and leaders in this process. So we want to tell you that we're so thankful, we're really grateful for the presentation you shared with us, all the knowledge you imparted, and I'm sure we're all inspired to create the conditions that will foster engagement in our respective organizations. We also would like to extend thanks to all participants for your attentive presence and engagement throughout the session. Ladies and gentlemen, your commitment to excellence is really what drives these discussions forward. Once again, Ambassador Underwood, thank you so much for your dedication to excellence and for being an inspiration in talent development and leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Underwood. All right. So anybody who is familiar with baking, and you're baking a cake with different layers, right? We have the first layer, we even added a second layer. And so tomorrow is the what? It's the icing on the cake, right? So we have set the standard. We have set a high standard for what is going to come tomorrow. And I encourage you to be here early. But guess what? When you're coming, I want you to park at the Liggett Club, because we provide a shuttle service from the Liggett Club to the Pegasus. So you don't have to really worry about parking and driving to the back and having to walk in your heels and so on, okay? Park at the Liggett Club and we shuttle across to the Pegasus. One more thing for you to do on the QR code, when you scan it, there's an evaluation form for today. We really want to get some feedback from you. There are two evaluation forms, one that says July 10th and one that says July 11th. So you're going to access the one that says July 10th. Okay? So we really want to thank all of our presenters today. Can we give them one last round of applause? Because it was a truly inspiring and inspirational day. And this would not have been possible without you, our delegates. So give yourselves a round of applause for your attentiveness and your high levels of engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for day one. And I think I can say it was awesome. Yes? And so we look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. Tomorrow we continue with a different type of format, and also it's going to be our public life award luncheon. You do not want to miss. Who will be our awardees for the public life award for leadership excellence? Ladies and gentlemen, walk good, and we'll see you tomorrow. Remember to complete the evaluation form. Thank you.